Welcome to the Raven Space on YouTube. My name is Jason, and this is the Raven Space Mailbag, where we talk about your questions. I'm super excited. We have 4 great questions. I want to say that you guys will now be getting 2 mailbag episodes each week. Hopefully, one from our Patreon, so exclusively Patreon questions, and then one from everyone who watches and loves the Raven Space and loves the Baltimore Ravens. You can get your question on the show by putting it in the comment section below. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe to the Raven Space on YouTube. We have a lot of great content. Also, please like this video, share this video on Facebook. It helps us out and it connects us to more Baltimore Ravens fans and grows our community, this Raven Space family. So before we get started, I want to say thank you. And now let's do this. The first question comes from DC. And sorry, DC, I had to blink your picture out. It wasn't a good picture. It was bad stuff in it. And the question is, should Ravens draft Lamar Jackson in the first or second round? Thank you so much for your question. So first things first, we have to talk about Lamar Jackson as a player. Very explosive player. However, did play in the ACC. And we need to make a decision. Who is this player, right? Because there's a similar player to him with similar skill set that played in the ACC named Deshaun Watson. If he's Deshaun Watson, you consider taking him in the second round, I think. However, he can also be compared to another mobile quarterback with a big arm, RG3. And if he's RG3, then you don't take that guy. So it's what do you think? Is he RG3 or is he Deshaun Watson? Depending on which one you think, you'll take him. Again, I mean, literally, good height, slender frame, good speed, good arm strength. Sometimes struggles with ball placement, similar to those two. But again, we saw Deshaun Watson able to elevate while we saw RG3 falter. So, what's the move? What do you do? I say you do not draft him first or second round. If he drops to the third round, you consider taking him. And the reason I say that is because if the Ravens, want to win now, they got to make these moves. If you watch the State of the Union, well, with Bashotti, it's not really State of the Union anymore, but Bashotti did an interview, which you can see on the Raven Space YouTube channel. And in the interview, he wanted to win now. He even said that, quarterbacks don't retire at the same age they used to. So they think Joe Flacco's going to be there for at least 3 more years. So you let this one go. If he drops to the third round, the value's too great. He'll be, if he drops to the third round, I think he'll be the best player on the board. You take him there, and I think you're happy with that choice. Thank you so much for your question, DC. And now we're going to go to the next question from Paul Casey, and he says, should we keep Terrell Suggs? Great question, Paul, and the answer is yes. Terrell Suggs is the best pass rusher on the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens historically have not been a team that you can plug in people and the system makes them better. That's just not true for the Ravens. You see a team like the Patriots that they plug in literally nobodies, and they still often have enough juice to make it, make it far, win games. The Ravens don't have that. The Ravens defense has a good system, but it's also been predicated on stars, right? We've never had a Ravens team that was good without a major star. You have to think about it. Ray Lewis, Hall of Famer. Ed Reed, Hall of Famer. Terrell Suggs, Hall of Famer. Then you had great players like Lloyd Nada, Kelly Gregg, who were big names. You got people like Peter Boulware, Chris McAllister. These are big name players, right? And not only big names to us, but the league, other people in the league know these players, right? That's what the Ravens need, and Terrell Suggs is that. I don't think our scheme is effective enough to plug in a player like Tim Williams right now and get the same amount of production as you would with a Terrell Suggs. We're not there. Keep Terrell Suggs. I would, before this season, I was saying a year, but honestly, Tim Williams, and Zadarius, and Tyus, they didn't impress me enough for me to feel comfortable letting go of Terrell. So I say keep Terrell Suggs for another 2 years. Those other people have to learn, and then what happens after that. Suggs can't play forever, and maybe even hire Suggs on as a linebacker coach because he does have good relationships with these people and he knows the game. We're gonna go to the next question. Thank you so much for that last question. And this question comes from Xavier Hall, and his question is: how many receivers do you think the Ravens will draft? Sorry about that. I had to get some water. I think at a minimum 1, at a maximum 2. And it all depends on what they do in free agency. You guys have to remember that the Ravens have a lot of receivers. If they bring back Camp, they got, are they going to bring back Mike Wallace? You got Macklin. You have to give Perryman some chance. You draft them in the first round, and when you draft a player in the first round, they bust. It sets your franchise back. So you have to get him. You saw what happened to the defense when we drafted Matt Elam in the first round. So you got to give him a chance to mature and grow. Then you have the players that were injured. You got players like Adebojo who didn't play a lot, but you hope he can grow. You got Chris Moore. So I just named 6. Off the back. Yeah, Tim White. You have so many players that you want to give a chance. So, but you do need to add talent, high-end talent. So second round is where you go a receiver. And then if you add a receiver from free agency, it's just too many chefs in the kitchen. So you gotta get a draft, a receiver in the draft. I say second round. And I think you're gonna get one in free agency. So that's the scenario where we only take 1, honestly. Because you have a lot of depth there already. Now, if you don't get a receiver in free agency, I see you taking a receiver number 2, and then maybe taking one number 4, and then that's your crew that you're rolling into the playoffs. The regular season with. So I would say at a minimum 1, at a maximum 2, because really we're very crowded there, and you want to give some of these players a chance, and technically you have to give some of these players a chance. Like you have to give, not technically, but you have to give Perryman a chance to grow, because he hurts your team if he's not good. So you wasted a pick, a first-round pick, if he's not good. Now we're going to go to the next question. Thank you for the last question. And this is actually the last question of the day. And Austin Martle asked, do you think these, do you think we have any chance that we will make a splash in the free agency for a receiver or 2? Say Allen Robinson, Dante Moncrief, Sammy Watkins, or someone of that caliber. So thank you so much for your question, Austin. Well, you named 3 receivers. And Allen Robinson is on a different caliber than Sammy Watkins. Allen Robinson is the number 1 receiver. Sammy Watkins and Dante Moncrief are not. Now, so I'll analyze both classes. So for players like Allen Robinson and players like Jarvis Landry, who are number 1 receivers, and they have shown that they have actually the skills to back it up on tape, then I say you try to make a splash. Don't know if cap space will allow it. We'll see. But you do try to make a big splash. Now, for the other receivers, the Ravens need to be careful, because the Ravens have a history of bringing in, some receivers that bust. Mike Wallace is a good receiver. He's not a number 1 receiver. And if he's your number 1 receiver, your team won't make the playoffs like we did this year when he was our number 1 receiver. You bring in Jeremy Macklin, who, similar to Sammy Watkins, has injury history. So it is a tough thing. I say if you can get the Sammy Watkins as your number 2 receiver, but you have to find a number 1 receiver somewhere, either in the draft or you have confidence that Macklin can rise to the occasion. But Sammy Watkins at times will evaporate to number 3. So you have to get him for the right price, a cheap price, and then maybe you go get a player like that, Dante Moncrief, a cheap fix that be your number 2 or 3 receiver. They're not right now number 1 receivers, and I really don't see a big change happening by getting them. And I know a lot of people love Sammy Watkins. I don't know why. He was good in college, so I guess that, but he's been in the league for 3 to 4 years now and has been injured, and then when he's not been injured, hasn't really produced. He literally got traded by the team that drafted him to the Rams. The Rams were going to let him go. So literally he played for 2 teams in 1 year, and neither team wanted him. So you see what I'm saying? Now it can work out, but not sometimes, if a smart coach like McVay from the Rams doesn't want that receiver to help out his young quarterback, that should raise some red flags. It would for me. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please, again, subscribe to the Raven Space on YouTube for the best borrowing content on the internet. Again, we're having 2 mailbags, one with your questions, one with questions from my Patreon members. So please, Patreon members, go to your Patreon homepage and throw a question in there. I have a post up. You guys are now having the ability to affect the content as well as, get special perks. For example, you will have a mailbag specifically with your questions, and I also put a poll up so you guys can pick the next feature. So thank you guys so much, and go Ravens.